It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Jens T.W. Kuhn, who's the president and CEO of Kettenbach. Thank you so much for coming by today. Kettenbach was founded in 1944 in Germany. This is a very amazing company. So Jens here was born in 1968. He's a father of 3 children, enjoys horseback riding and traveling. He's a German citizen. He got a bachelor's administration from Northern Arizona University Flagstaff, like Ryan did. So you and Ryan both went to NAU. He has an MBA and Master of International Business from Loyola University, Chicago. He started his professional career as a strategic marketing consultant. He moved on to work in the international marketing division of a pharmaceutical company. He started his dental career at Kettenbach, Germany 20 years ago. First 8 years as Vice President of Sales, then 2 years augmented responsibility of Vice President of Sales and Marketing. And for the past 10 years, he's been President and CEO. In 2007, Kettenbach L.P. He started Kettenbach L.P., which is the exclusive U.S. distributor of Kettenbach KG from Germany. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And I want to reiterate to everyone that no one's ever paid to be on my show. Several have asked, when I started Dental Town, I owned Dentist Town. And I wanted the dentist and the manufacturer in town, because if all of us homies are saying, my gosh, this composite, it's red, I would give anything it was blue. Well, we can hope and pray and think about it, but the manufacturers are the only ones that make it. And I wanted the manufacturers on the site. And a lot of dentists would complain. They'd say, oh my God, this guy, he works for a company selling stuff. And I'd say, well, what the hell are you? What are you, a volunteer doing free dentistry in some mission? Oh, so you can sell root canals and crowns at $1,000 a piece, but you think the people who sell all the stuff that make you wonderful can't talk about it? So I called it Dental Town, and if you know a manufacturer, I think it's silly when I get an email from SurveyMonkey from a dental manufacturer that wants to offer me some gift card if I would do a survey on their dental products. Like, dude, why don't you go to Dental Town on the search bar, which is a $50,000 Google appliance. It'll search those 5 million posts in like 0.01 seconds and do a search for your product. I mean, these dentists are there. Some of these products have 50 different threads talking in ad nauseum of what they like or don't like about a product, and the dental manufacturers haven't even responded. I think if I was a dental manufacturer and I wanted to know what my customers thought, I would do a search for your company's name or product regularly. But enough of that. So what are you passionate about these days? What makes you want to go to work at Kettenbach?
Well, I love the healthcare sector. I've been in the healthcare sector all my life. My family has been in that sector for 5 generations. So obviously I do have a very special relationship to healthcare. I love dentistry for the very reason that dentists, like myself, are usually entrepreneurs. You run your own offices, you make your own decisions, good or bad. We all have both every day. But we are masters of our own destiny. So I like that. And obviously, this is a space where you can still be innovative, create a brighter future, brighter smiles.
You know, when I was getting my MBA at Arizona State University, there was several people in management of hospitals. And they used to tell stories of hospitals, and dentists don't realize. I mean, I'm always hard on dentists to get better at their business, but dentists and vets and chiropractors are light years ahead in business than physicians. I mean, you go into a hospital, their billing codes, the whole system is so insane. So I'm really proud that dentistry is kind of at the junction between a physician in healthcare and a small business. And as much as we beat ourselves up for not being better at business, oh my God, we make the physicians look incompetent when it comes to business. I mean, truly incompetent. So what is your, explain to someone about Kettenbach. What is your core competency? What are your core products?
Well, as you mentioned, we're founded in 1944, so we have a long history. I really look at the start of our company as 1955, because that's when Kettenbach brought silicone to the dental space. So the first silicone-based impression material has been a Kettenbach product. Elastic 55.
Was that the rubber base?
Silicone.
Silicone.
Condensation curing silicone.
Okay.
So that at that time was revolutionary, because prior to that, dentists took impressions using gypsum plaster. And if you imagine what that means, you have to break that off the teeth, reassemble it like a puzzle. Not only is it very inconvenient for the patient, it's also not very precise. So what sets us apart a little bit from other companies is our high degree of specialization. We basically stayed mainly an impression materials company.
But I'm sorry, what is a silicone-based impression material? What was the name brand, or what are name brands of them today?
Name brands.
Like vinyl polysiloxane.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I always heard of it VPS, vinyl polysiloxane.
Vinyl polysiloxane is an addition curing silicone, whereas condensation curing silicone, as you can tell from the name, there's water that actually evaporates the material, so not as precise. But the best technology had to offer in those days.
And that was in 1955?
Usually a tin catalyst, which tin, especially in North America and Western Europe, nowadays is not being used any longer. But again, technology of 1955.
And then you call VPS an addition curing silicone?
Yes.
Okay. I did not know that. I learned something new every day on my show.
And I'm not a chemist, so I can obviously touch the surface with you, but I can tell, and I can rather tell you what it can do for you or cannot do for you. So the entry of addition curing silicones in the market brought more precision.
And what year did those come out?
About in the early 80s.
So 1955 was condensation curing silicone with a tin activator.
Yes.
And then in 1980 about was the addition curing silicone VPS that we all know today.
Yes.
Right on.
And I mean, more precise, easier handling. I'm sure you recall materials where you had a paste hardener or liquid hardener. Those were condensation curing silicones.
Like the old rubber base?
Yes.
Okay.
So not very nice to mix. Very sensitive to all impression materials are sensitive to having the right mixture. But since it was not a 1-to-1 ratio, which is what you're used to with today's addition curing silicones, you had a pretty good chance to be off a little bit. You had some chance to tweak the setting characteristics of the material by using more or less catalyst, which also could go wrong. So today's materials are much safer to use and much more precise. That's not a Kettenbach thing per se. That is state of the art in technology.
I was when I got out of school in 1980, rubber base was still big for removable. But what was that green impression that you had the tubes and you had them in the hot water tank?
Hydrocolloids.
Hydrocolloid. Oh my gosh. One of my friends, Omar Reed, back in the day when I got out of school in 87 and you took a big Crown and Bridge course by Omar Reed, it was all those tubes of green hydro. Do they even still sell that
These
anywhere?
materials still exist.
Do they really?
I would call them a little bit special interest.
Do you sell it, hydrocolloid?
No, we don't. If you do an impression with hydrocolloids and completely follow the protocol, you get a good result. Your patient will hate you for it. I don't know whether you ever had the experience to have that in your mouth as a patient, but it's pretty hot.
Oh, okay, it is.
So that's not nice. And there's no real reason to use it. I mean, you have other materials that are way more comfortable, faster, economical in the work process.
But they still sell hydrocolloid.
Very, very, very small.
Do you sell it?
No.
Do they still sell in rubber base?
Yes, in some countries around the world.
In some countries. And you said something very profound. You know, dentistry is an art and a science. And even though it's a competing product, he just said if you follow the protocol and do it just as you're supposed to, you can get a nice result. I was amazed at how a lot of dentists in Japan use Alginate for final impression, crown and bridge.
I do.
Do you sell Alginate?
We don't sell alginates. We sell what we call an alginate substitute. It's a polyvinyl-based material that has the same physical characteristics as an alginate in terms of flow properties. An alginate, for example, other than other PVS materials, you want to tear easily, right? Because you can go in undercuts. You don't want to extract teeth. The big disadvantage of an alginate, it shrinks. You cannot store it over time because it's water-based. So we have a material called Alginate that has all the physical properties of an alginate, but doesn't shrink because it's not water-based.
Now, how common is Alginate for crown and bridge in Japan?
Very common. Even hydrocolloids are still widely used in Japan.
Is it the same Alginate that most American dentists buy?
It is.
Yeah. And they get excellent results with it. Or do you not think so?
They pour the model immediately. Which, of course, if you incorporate that in your work process, in theory that's doable. But your last patient on a Friday afternoon, what are you going to do?
You just take it to the golf course with you and you'd pour it up at the country club. But you know, that's what I love the most about the internet. And you know, we've done Howard's Dentistry Uncensored podcast live from I don't know, 20, 30 countries, Japan, South Africa, all around. And that's what I think the story is, because within a country you live in your own bubble and you just see the world this way. But like, I mean, think about that. Japan makes Toyota and Honda. They make the greatest car company. Well, I can't say you're German, but only two countries really can make a car, and it's Japan and Germany. When you go around the world and a country wants to send their engineering students abroad, they only send them to Germany and Japan. Nobody sends their students to America to become engineers. And so here's a country like Tokyo, one of the greatest civilizations that ever existed. It's so amazingly well run. The German trains and the Tokyo subways, I mean, if they're like 15 seconds late, they're all shameful. And they use Alginate in Japan. It's amazing how, and that's where the story is, looking at all how the world is different.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's how you find a lot of thought, is like, what do you think people do differently?
Isn't it fascinating? We are only talking about the oral cavity, but how many different people do things differently, still arrive at good results? I mean, that's...
And what I really like to also focus on is the insurance payment mechanism. Because in three of the greatest civilizations that ever existed, Tokyo, Paris, and London, the government will only pay you about $100 US for a molar root canal. Well, hell, in the United States, we charge $1,000, and at least $500 of that is overhead. So what do you see in those three great civilizations? They don't want they lose money doing molar root canals. So they want to extract the tooth and do an implant. And then you jump Japan, then you jump across the water a little bit, and you're in China, where there's no such thing as dental insurance. And when you talk to a Chinese dentist, and they have the same number of dentists in China as the United States, when you talk to a dentist in China, he seriously in his heart believes it's a bad, perverse incentive. You're the one drinking Coca-Cola and eating chips and never brushing and flossing your teeth. So why should your employer or your government pay for your preventable disease? They think it's a perverse incentive. They say, hey, find the money you bought your iPhone with and you fix your own tooth. And maybe when you pay your money to fix your own tooth, you'll go home and take care of it. It's like kind of like kids. If you buy I raise 4 boys. If you buy them a bicycle for their birthday, when they come home from school, they'll leave in the front yard. And if it's stolen, they're like, whatever. But if they pay for half, and you say, you want that, you pay for half, then they keep the bicycle in their bedroom. So having skin in the game matters. So whether it's dental insurance or dental impression materials, I really think that you can find examples all the way around the world to see what works and what doesn't work.
Well, see, look at cosmetic dentistry. Look at the simplest part of cosmetic dentistry, whitening. Especially in Europe, I've talked to dentists who said, well, I'm not a beautician. No, my dear doctor. But on the one hand side, you feel responsible that your patients feel better. And then I also believe that once you have invested in your teeth, and you look in the mirror and you feel you're a little bit more aware of what happens there, you take care of your teeth better. So to a degree, I buy into that,
Yeah, I think that's why I was always big into bleaching and bonding and all the cosmetic stuff, because if a person didn't like their teeth and they covered them when they smile, they always had gingivitis, gum disease. They didn't like their teeth. They didn't take care of it. And then you did bleaching, bonding, orthodontics, Invisalign, whatever, and now they love their smile. And now they're brushing and flossing every day and coming in every 6 months for their cleaning. So, if you don't like something, you're not gonna take care of it.
No, that's the difference between thinking it's just God given or you do something with it.
And what also bothers me is when dentists say they don't like to sell dentistry. I'm like, well, then you should get out of dentistry and you should go sell something you're passionate about. I mean, maybe you should work at the Apple Genius Bar, since all you talk about is your iPhone and your iPad, and go work for something you're passionate about. Because when women lose all their teeth and get dentures, sometimes they commit suicide. And ever since I've been doing this for 30 years, I've always made a point to ask a woman, how much money would I have to give you to pull your front tooth and you can never replace it the rest of your life? They go, oh, no money in the world. I said, no. What about for $1 million? No way. And I say, what about 10 million? And they say, no way. When these women are turning down $1 million in cash for their front tooth, never to replace it, and then you say you don't like to sell dentistry? I mean, that is just a bad attitude. It's a really bad attitude.
I mean, nobody can argue that teeth are not relevant for the individual. So I think to sell something to a person that is relevant to that person, there's nothing bad about this. And yes, if you sell good dentistry, you're actually creating happier patients.
Oh yeah, happier, healthier. And dentistry is a crossroads between oral health and mental health. Imagine if when smokers started smoking, instead of their lungs turning black, the outside of their skin all started turning black with tar and nicotine. They would stop. Imagine, when people have high blood pressure or their A1C level goes high. These diseases you can't see or feel. But my gosh, when their front tooth breaks off, it is a cosmetic emergency. They stop everything. They go right to the dentist. And if they don't have insurance or whatever, they'll get out their credit card and they'll pay to restore their oral health because it affects their mental health. Yeah. Very important. So what?
Only the center of your face,
Yeah. And what percent of your business is impression materials?
It's still about 2/3 of our business. See, we know what we can do good, what we can't do, and we know we are a manufacturer of chemical-based consumables. So you will not see us.
And are they all made in one location in Germany?
They are.
And what city is that?
We are in a very small town by the name of Eschenburg, which is between Frankfurt and Cologne.
Oh man, I've been to every major city in Germany. but I love Cologne the most. I mean, Berlin's cool and Frankfurt's cool. Those are all really cool towns. But Cologne was it was the furthest northern outpost of the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago. They still got the wall around it. It's kind of a mix that you can get pure German food, pure Italian food, and then a hybrid German-Italian. And what I like so much is when you go to the IDS meeting, there's how many dentists go to that? Over 100,000.
Think about 60.
It's 60,000?
Yes, dentists.
Dentists, but how many people, total bodies?
I'm sure you're right about it, over 100,000.
So 60,000 dentists.
No,
Total.
Quote me on that.
Yeah. No, well, I've been there
Stats
several times. So I've
published.
seen the stats several times. It's over 100,000 people. But the whole city knows there's 60,000 dentists in from another country that don't know how to do anything, work the trains, whatever. And they're so helpful. They're so sweet. They're so nice. You're standing at a train booth and you're trying to figure out the pass, and 3 people stop and help you. And then when you get on so the whole city knows that this IDS convention is going on. And I'm sure we dump a ton of money into the city during that week. And they just treat you like royalty. And then what's really neat is you get a train pass, and you can go anywhere in Europe. I mean, you can just sit there after the meeting and say, hey, let's go to Amsterdam. And how long does it take to go from Cologne to Amsterdam?
2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours. How long do you go to France, Paris? 6?
I would say maybe 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. Every time we go there, you're sitting there at night and say, well, you want to hang out here, or should we run over to Amsterdam or run over to here, or just jump on a train?
In Cologne, you can take the speed train that goes Cologne, Brussels, Brussels, Paris. Super easy, super fast.
Oh, my God, it's just amazing. So how many employees do you have?
About 200.
Oh, so that's a huge company, 200
No.
employees. Well, 200 employees, I mean, the average person listening to you is running a dental office with 5 employees.
Yeah.
You know, you just got a hygienist, 2 assistants, a receptionist, so 200 into 5 would be 40 times bigger than the people you're talking to.
Well, I just think we can relate to each other better if we run relatively small operations. And we own our operations. So we're responsible for our decisions.
Well, I want to tell you something about my experience with German manufacturing. And so when I was little, when we go on vacation, my dad only had two dreams. He wanted to go to every amusement park. So he went to every Disneyland, Six Flags, all that stuff. But in that same city, he would look up the manufacturers who did tours. So like when we went to St. Louis, we went to Budweiser and watched them make beer. When we were in Denver, to Coors. When our family bought a station wagon, we drove to Detroit, and we followed in a golf cart pulling deal of our car being made and rolled off the end of the summit. He just loved manufacturing. And so I did that with my 4 boys. I've taken them to, oh my gosh, on just American family vacations, they've been into 50 dental companies, from 1-800-Dentist to ADEC to Denman. I mean, just all these different companies. And my God, when you walk into a German company, it is an entirely different level of expertise. I mean, it looks like a place where they made a Swiss watch. I mean, it's just so exacting. It's at a whole nother level. And I'll tell you another thing. You walk into a lot of these German companies. How many PhDs do you have working for you? PhD chemists?
About a dozen.
Yeah. So you go in to his company with 200 employees, has a dozen PhDs, and how many telemarketers do you have where they're cold calling dentists?
In the U.S.?
No, in Germany.
In Germany, about, I think, 8 or 10.
Okay, 8 or 10. You go into dental manufacturers in the United States, they have no PhDs, not one PhD on the payroll, and they'll have 30, 40 people in a call center dialing for dollars and the thermostat, and if you reach your goal at lunch, here's a Starbucks coffee card. Americans are master at sales, but only Germany and Japan know how to make cars. And I'll give you another example of that when they rolled out the space shuttle. When they rolled out the space shuttle, which, by the way, the whole NASA program was built with German scientists. When they rolled out the space shuttle, there was this big, huge black arrow pointing to the fuel tank. And I thought, well, I gas my car. I don't need an arrow. I know where the gas tank is. Why would there be a black arrow the size of me pointing to the gas tank? That's Germans. They're Six Sigma. They like 0.000001 defect per million or whatever, and they do every single thing possible so that there's no defects. I mean, it's an amazing culture. And then in Japan, you know how you have the Emmys and the Tonys, and you worship all the movie stars and the Oscars and the Tonys and the Emmys. Japan, they do that with the W. Edwards Deming Award, who was the greatest process manager engineer, and they celebrate their greatest engineers just like you celebrate Kanye West or Kanye West or all your Madonna and movie stars. I mean, it's just a culture of make it so good it'll sell itself.
See, let's not forget the nature of our products. We're not selling, to stay with your first example, we're not selling cars, we're selling gasoline. And at the end of the day, I can sell you any product once, but after that, the product has to deliver. The product has to really deliver what you need. So if I jeopardize quality, I have a big problem.
Absolutely.
So can't afford that. So you looked at number of PhD resources. If I tell you that 1 out of 7 Kettenbach employees works in either R&D or quality assurance, I think that's also
1 in 7 works in quality
or product development.
Wow. Now, what is your number one selling vinyl polysiloxane?
It is Panasil.
Panasil?
Yes. But while we focused a little bit on impression materials, and that because that was our origin, we also have quite a few very successful methacrylate-based products now. We have Visalis Temp, temporary crown and bridge material, Visalis Core, a core build-up material, and obviously many more products to follow.
And do you have product champions? I mean, are there like famous dentists that lecture on your products, or?
We do, yes.
You do?
Most dentists that lecture on our products found us. We didn't find them, because you can only convincingly lecture about a product if you really like it.
If it's from the heart.
Everything else is very short-lived, correct?
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I always say that if you took away 50 dental companies, the quality of dentistry would go to the floor. I mean, we'd be like sitting outside on a rug pulling teeth with things we bought at Home Depot. It's just about 50 companies that make us look like we're Star Wars dentists. I mean, it's truly amazing. So you're 2/3 impression materials, and now you're getting into temporary materials with methyl methacrylate.
Yes.
Is it methacrylate or methyl methacrylate?
Methacrylate.
Methacrylate, okay. And those are for temporaries.
Well, temporary crown and bridge materials, but also materials that are not temporary in nature, like core build-up materials.
Okay. I'm looking at your. So has chairside milling had a material impact on decreasing your vinyl polysiloxane sales? Because
no, I mean, if you ask me what is the future of dentistry, of course there is a digital side to it, and we embrace technological progress. Chairside milling is still fairly small. Digital impressions, digital milling definitely has had its inroad into the lab. I mean, we both know that laboratories have changed a lot. I still believe that there's many limitations of the systems available to dentists in the dental office today. Will that change? Absolutely. What is the time frame on that? Very hard to tell. I personally don't believe that light-based systems are the answer into the future.
Light-based?
Yes.
What's light-based?
Like laser systems.
You mean like oral impression scanning?
Yes. Not the way we do today.
So let's just go for this in the last 10 years. So from 2008, that's a bad example, that was the last nightmare crash, to 2018. Have your impression material sales, vinyl polysiloxane, been going up? Are they flat? Or are they going down because of the companies like 3Shape and their orals?
We still show double-digit growth every year.
Double-digit growth. So that's one of the things I'm always trying to tell you. It's not that I shun technology. I love technology. I think boys love their toys. I mean, you're from the country of Porsche. Do you have a Porsche?
I do.
You do, yeah. Is it pronounced Porsche or Porsche?
Porsche.
Yeah, Porsche. You go to Germany, it's Porsche, and that's where the shoe company Adidas.
Yes.
But Americans call it Adidas. And it's like, it's not Adidas and it's not Porsche, it's Adidas. And you know what Adidas stands for?
Yes.
What?
Adidas was a name.
I thought it was the marketing department. All day long I dream about soccer. Is that urban myth?
As far as I know, it was the name of the founder.
Ah, okay. Urban legend. Got me. You know, when you graduate $400,000 of student loans and you go buy a practice, the mean mode mu selling dental office is $750. When you're talking to me and you're 30 years old and you're $1 million in debt and you can take an impression material, how much does the average triple tray impression material cost with your number one selling? What is your number one selling vinyl polysiloxane? Panasil. How much do you think in US dollars the average triple tray would cost with Panasil?
I cannot give you an exact number, but if you reckon with about $10, I think you are.
Yeah, I would say depending on what you're using and what I've read, it's $10 to $17 an impression. And by the way, there's a class example. One of the lowest overhead dentists I know in my own backyard, Jared Pope, he absolutely is hell-bent on training his assistants how much material to use. And he says whenever he's visiting another dentist, including my office or any office, he says the way the assistants just dump so much bonding agent and squeeze out so much material that when they load the triple tray, the hell they have enough left for another triple tray. And just by focusing on, let's just use the amount I want, he's probably at $10 an impression material. Some people are $17 an impression material. But then you come to me and you say, well, maybe I'm going to quit doing that and get a $17,000 True Depth scanner. And I'm like, so you just have $17,000 laying around? Do you realize if you threw that $17,000 on your home mortgage? I mean, you're paying a home mortgage and your payment is $2,500 a month and only $500 of its principal and $2,000's interest. I mean, you're just, every time you solve a problem, you get into more debt, and then you get more stressed, and then you start losing sleep, and then you start kicking your dog and being unhappy and burn out. I mean, I think vinyl polysiloxane and taking that and then sending it to my lab right down the street is so fast. It's faster, it's easier, it's higher in quality, it's lower in cost. And you're like, well, maybe I should chairside mill.
See, I understand that people look at cost for one impression, and that's okay. But don't you rather see, you see the whole process. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. And a minute of your time is more than the potential difference in one impression material A to B. If your impression doesn't work, nothing works in the process after that. That makes your life stressful and expensive. So that's why, if you ask me what is the cost of an impression, the most valuable thing is your time. And then what can you save by only doing it once, rather than having reworks, grinding down crowns and bridges that you receive from your lab. So we really look more at the whole picture. If we don't fit in your whole process, and your whole process is not very well set up, then we have a problem. $2 more or less for an impression, it's all relative. And we see a lot of bad materials out there that people buy on, oh, it's $5 cheaper per cartridge. Is that really the focus? Is that where dentistry should be? I doubt that. All within reason, but at the end of the day, we all have to be passionate about quality and passionate about having a whole process work.
I remember when John Glenn...
You see that when you do surgery. Better surgeons are usually faster surgeons.
Absolutely.
You agree?
Absolutely.
And it's the same in a process like this. And fast doesn't mean sloppy. Fast just means from A to Z, every step of the process works. And it's reliable, it's repeatable. I mean, let's face it, you get enough surprises when you treat a patient. But where you can cut out potential surprises, do it.
Well, Regina Hertzlinger, who was a doctor in business administration from Harvard University. She's a healthcare economist. She's just unbelievable. She pointed out that to me 20 years ago in one of her books. I forget which one it was. It was Health versus Wealth or something. But she was talking about that the fastest surgeons have the highest success rate. And you know that in dentistry. An oral surgeon could pull all 4 of those wisdom teeth in 20 minutes and you're taking an hour. Who do you think is more likely to have a lingual paresthesia and a complication? Endodontists will do their molars almost every time in under an hour. And an hour later, you still haven't found the 4th canal. I mean, people who really know what they're doing and have all the top line equipment, digital radiography, microscopes, everything, they just go faster. I remember when John Glenn landed after orbiting the Earth, they said, what were you thinking about while you're up there? And he said that I was sitting in a spacecraft built by the lowest bidder. And that's something that Americans still haven't figured out with the roads. They're always complaining about the roads, the potholes, that it took a whole summer to redo this street. And the reason is because the government tells them they have to go to the lowest bidder. So if they would have went to the highest bidder, that street might have been built in 10 days. They might have used a material that had ingredients in there for more flexing and less potholes and all that stuff. But the reason Americans have the crappiest government infrastructure, I mean, drive on a German Autobahn and then drive down your interstate and you think you're the difference night and day. But the craziest is if you go to Amsterdam, which is the Netherlands, which is, they pronounce Nederlands, you know it as Holland. Nederlands means lowlands. You look at their dikes, and then you go to New Orleans and you look at this dirt hill dike made by a tractor. And the last time they had a hurricane, it did so much damage. And what did they rebuild? A third world dirt dike, because not one American has ever been to Amsterdam and looked at the dike from Louisiana and thought, oh my God, that their dike looks like Star Wars made it. It looks like it was designed by Darth Vader. And then you go to ours and it looks like some kid from the 6th grade who bought his first dump truck built it. And so quality is just everything. And the only 2 countries that it's mainly Germany and Japan. But when you say Germany, I see the same quality in Austria, Switzerland, Liechtenstein. I mean, think of the Swiss watch. I mean, they just have a culture of perfection. And in his new book, John Doerr of Kleiner Smith Perkins, he wrote a book on, he was one of the greatest venture capitalists ever, and he picked Google, he picked Amazon, the big Netscape. I mean, the guy is one of the richest guys in the world. And they said, well, how do you always know which company to bet on? He said, because I make the majority of my bet on the founder's obsession with technical excellence. And if the founder is trying to get rich quick and he's trying to sell like most Americans, no. He looks for a founder like Sargent and Larry Page who are just, their algorithm is going to be the best in the world. And Jeff Bezos, his shopping experience is going to be second to none. Get technical excellence. That's the top priority. And when you start to go cheap, now you have a remake. And I want to get back to technical excellence.
You know, the thing, in my opinion, really is what is cheaper at the end of the day. If you save on quality, it's going to cost you more money too. I mean, I fully understand all people work under some economical constraints. But to buy cheap in the wrong places is more expensive. It's costing you more money. And if you do cheap dentistry, eventually you don't have patients too.
Yeah, you have a
That's
Porsche.
Another thing.
I bought a Lexus in 2004. It's still sitting in the car. It's still sitting in the garage. So that's 14 years. I bought this car once, 14 years, and it hasn't even blinked. And every time I take it to the dealer, he's like, well, give us your car and $100,000 and you can have a 2018 new one. I was like, why would I give you $100,000? It's a perfect car. I mean, you buy, so if you built your road one time great, it would last 3 times longer than keep building it at the lowest cost. What is your number one selling product is Panacel. What's your second selling product?
It's Futar. Futar? Yes. It's the leading bite registration material in Europe and many other countries in the world. It's definitely a big selling product for us in North America. As you know, you're usually strongest in the markets where you're the most active. And that has been Germany for us for a long time. We've been market leader in that field for more than 20 years in a row. And we compete with the same companies we compete with here. So it's a very outstanding product with very unique physical properties. So another example that quality can actually win.
Nice. And then what would be your third? So Futar, F-U-T-A-R, bite
Yes.
registration material. Panacel's number 1. Futar's number 2. What would number 3 be?
At this point in time, it's Visalis Temp. Visalis is our temporary crown and bridge material.
A dentist should be able to fabricate stable, aesthetic, and attractive temporary restorations with minimal effort using a good quality temporary crown and bridge material. Impressive features of Visalis Temp are its thin smear layer, high luster finish without polishing, and easy preparation when trimming. Temporary restorations fabricated using Visalis Temp are exceptionally stable and fracture resistance due to their monomer structure. Visalis Temps have a natural looking fluorescence. And I want to tell you something about the temporary. You can solve all your problems in your temporary. Like when you get your crown back and you need a reduction coping, all that means is you took the final impression before you made your temporary. When you get done with your final impression and then you leave the room and tell the assistant to make the temporary, and she's trying to make the temporary and she's trying to finish back the margin, but she's not wearing loops. Everybody wet hands wears loops. Magnification is the number one fastest, easiest, highest quality way to increase your technical excellence. And she can't even find the impression material, the margin on a temporary. Well, then your lab man's going to have the same problem. And then she goes to adjust the occlusion and she goes through it, but and furthermore, that process takes a half an hour. But when the dentists go in there and they don't leave the room, the fastest dentist, 30 minutes, and they make the best crowns. They go in there and they numb. They set a timer for 4 minutes. They sit there and take the lab shade. They're bonding with the patient, pressing the flesh. The patient's only going to remember how you made them feel. They're not going to remember which tooth you're working on. Timer goes ding. Then you pack the 0 cord and then the 1 cord because you want to prevent bleeding. You don't want to try to treat it. Then you do your whole prep. And then when you're all done, you and your assistant make your temporary. And while you're making the temporary, you got your loops on and you can't find the margin. Well, your lab man's not going to find the margin. So you go back in there and look, and maybe you need to finish your margin better. Now you're making a second temporary. The margin looks great. You're adjusting occlusion. And then you go through and you realize, oh my God, I don't have enough reduction. Maybe it's an opposing customer, whatever. And then now you're on your third temporary and you got perfect margins, you got perfect contacts, perfect occlusion. Boom, it's going to be, your lab man's going to get the same result. Then you take the impression, and then you go do a hygiene check, and then you come back, it looks great, you look under your loops, cement your temporary, that's 30 minutes. And then you're scheduling an hour and a half for a crown. And when I got out of school 30 years ago, you could schedule an hour and a half for a crown because the insurance company gave you $1,000 30 years ago. 30 years later, with inflation going around the clock, I mean, you don't even get $650, $700 for a crown? And you're still taking 90 minutes? And then I tell you the guy across the street has 50% overhead and he does them in 30 minutes, and your first thing is just like, oh, well, he's sloppy, he's cutting corners, he's cheap, he's no good. No. Talk to the people with doctorates in business administration, Regina Hertzlinger. The fastest doctors who do, one of the surgeries she was looking at was just a hernia repair. When the surgeons would do the hernia repair, start to finish under 5 minutes, at 90 days, they had no failures. By the time it went to 7 minutes, they had like 5%. By the time it took twice as long, 10 minutes, they had like a 5% 30-day complication failure rate. The fastest doctors are the best. They got the right materials, the right equipment, they're focused, and they work hard, and they get it done. So if you were charging $1,000 for a crown, and now you've been kicked from Delta Premier to Delta PPO, or you've taken some other PPO, and now you're getting $650 for a crown, well, that means you've agreed to do it 1/3 faster. So if you were taking 90 minutes, well, now you're going to get an hour. If you already scheduled an hour, now you're going to have to schedule it in 45 minutes. So time is money. And when back to you were talking about build-up materials. My gosh, I mean, if you have a build-up material that sets up in 1 minute, that's half the price of a build-up material that sets up in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. My God, I don't have. I mean, sitting there for 2-3 minutes seems like an attorney. So your second was Futar. Your third was what?
Visalis Temp.
Visalis Temp. And what would be your fourth?
It's becoming thin there. The fastest growing right now is Visalis Core.
Oh, so Visalis is a temporary material?
We have two. We have
and a core buildup.
Visalis Temp, which is a temporary material. We have Visalis Core, which is a core built-up material.
And so you like the word Visalis?
Well, it's
what does that mean?
The French word visage for face, and the Greek word lys for light.
So Greek word, how do you spell lys?
Lys.
Lys in Greek means
light.
Light. And what was the French word?
Visage.
Spell that.
Visage.
In French, that means face?
Face.
Huh.
So these are products for, obviously, aesthetics.
Visage. So violet, or how do you Visalis? Visalis, so it means face light.
It's an artificial word, like your Lexus.
Yeah.
Nice.
How? Nice. So talk about the how does a material? What's the difference between a temporary material and a core buildup material? Is it the same? Is it very similar chemistry, or is it completely different?
Well, you have the core buildup material is dual curing. That's one big difference. The physical properties you need in a core build-up material and in the temporary materials are a little bit different. You know that in a temporary material you have to have a phase in which the material can still be somewhat manipulated. You don't have that in a core build-up material. In a core build-up material, when it starts to set, it just has to set. And so you're done. One thing that both materials have in common, and I know this is not the biggest topic in dentistry yet, regardless, and I find that a little bit strange, is the issue of bisphenol A, BPA. We talk about BPA in children's toys, in Tupperware boxes, and everything that is plastics. Yet we accept in the dental space that we have materials that have bisphenol A. We just don't care, which I don't get. So our Visalis products are our Visalis Temp is the only temporary material in the market that is free of bisphenol A and bisphenol A derivatives.
It's the only one in the market.
Yes.
Your Visalis, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Visalis.
Visalis Temp.
Visalis Temp and Core?
Both have no bisphenol A.
Wow, or derivatives. So do you market that heavily?
We don't market it. We do obviously mention that. But I mean, what does your body do with bisphenol A? Your body recognizes it as a hormone.
But is it in composites too?
There are many composites that have bisphenol A, yes, or derivatives of bisphenol A.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
But you remember, this is America. We don't believe in global warming or that deficits will eventually bankrupt the country. The fastest growing society is the Flat Earth Society.
But you know what I don't get is there are certain things where you may have no alternatives, but in this case we have an alternative.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. Etching, for example, is never going to be gentle by definition, right?
Etching?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yet it's a necessary. Well, evil, wouldn't call it evil. You can do a lot to not cause your patient any harm. But in this case, you have the alternative. And I think we do see that an increasing number of dentists does care. But I'm sometimes surprised that it's not as big of a topic in dentistry with professional healthcare providers as it is in simple things like toys.
So, so you guys don't make composites, though?
For the time being, no.
Yeah. So your other product says you have an electrical mixing and dosing machine.
That's an accessory that we buy. We don't make that.
Okay.
But it extrudes jumbo cartridges, 380 ml cartridges. It's a system that is fortunately offered by many different companies in the field. So dentists have a choice of materials they use.
Now, do you are you what they call an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer, where you make private label vinyl polysiloxane for other companies?
Very limited, not for everybody, and never the same product like we make for our branded product.
Because I remember back in the day, there were some big famous companies that were excellent in marketing and advertising, and at the trade shows had the gorgeous girls and all that kind of stuff. And they had all these products, but they didn't make any products. They had other companies make all their products. Is that big in dentistry, or was it big in the 80s and 90s?
Still big in dentistry.
It's what?
It is still big in dentistry.
It is still big in dentistry?
What is an interesting change is Europe, the EU, has the new medical device regulations. And that means that as of 2020, the actual manufacturer of a product has to be on the label, and that will change that market drastically.
And when that kicks in, 2020?
2020.
By the way, we just got done. We've been meeting with our attorneys, the EU, because of the Facebook scandal and the Cambridge Analytica and all that. They've come out with some massive regulations on what Dentaltown website can do with cookies and information and all that stuff. So we've been making all these changes to that. So you'll probably, when you sign in, you have to click another user deal terms of agreement. But we've always been, we've never sold the emails or we've never sold information. And the thing I was surprised about is this morning from my own company, Dentaltown, basically how we pay for the free website, free podcasts, everything we do free is mostly sold just by email blast and banner ads. And I'd like to thank the 90,000 dentists out of 250,000 on Dentaltown who agreed to get the email blast. A lot of people opt out of it. I really wish you'd opt in because that's how we monetize the site. And but this morning I got an email blast from Dentaltown, and it was an ad for Amazon selling dental supplies. And it was last year that sent shockwaves. Amazon had a booth at the Greater New York meeting, and obviously, I mean, Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world. I mean, he's worth more than Bill Gates. What do you see in the next short term 5 years between selling through mostly distributors, Shine, Patterson, Benco, Burkhart, and versus a company that sells direct, like say Ultradent, versus now Amazon? How's how do you think Amazon's going to impact this industry?
Let's do different questions in one, right? So, on the one hand side...
see, I'm such a horrible interviewer. I asked like 9 questions, hoping that one of them will be worth answering.
Wait, because you managed to put 2 questions in one. So, allow me to answer both.
Okay.
We sell direct in the US, and there's a reason why we do that. If I walk into your office and I don't know more about what about my product and its application than you do, I'm stealing your time. I think that's a valid statement. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
So, if you don't talk to a specialist, namely me, when I walk into your office, something is wrong. And I think that's why you benefit from talking to a manufacturer rep. You're not necessarily benefiting in the full scheme talking to distributor rep. There are certain products that are no-brainers that you don't care to know a lot about. I mean, how long can we talk about bibs, cotton rolls, products like this? But when it is products that are essential for the quality of your work, you need to have the right partner. A company like Amazon, yes, I've seen they've tried to enter the space for several years now. And they're smart people, they're a smart company, they will find their way eventually. But just the fact that you can have a product easily available, and Amazon is very convenient to use, and we all use it in our private lives, may not be enough. I mean, you have easy access to products through all major distributors. So I personally believe that they still have to step up their game there to enter this market. Amazon would not preclude a manufacturer from having the clear obligation to talk to the final customer. How else can we advance technology? How else can we have progress? How many products you're using today were not around when you went to dental school? Fortunately, there is a lot of progress, and you can only use progressive things when you have a strong partner on the other side. That strong partner can only develop useful things if he knows exactly what you need. So how can we do that without interacting? I don't see that happening.
So will you sell your products on Amazon?
For the time being, there's no incentive to do so.
Yeah, and you know what really surprises me about Amazon going into medical is that Jeff Bezos historically wants the really large B2C markets. Mm-hmm. Like he spent last year almost, I think HBO spent 1.5 billion on original content movies. Jeff Bezos spent $4 billion. Netflix, where it's their only business, spent $6 billion. I mean, so when I see Bezos spending $4 billion on original content, I've never seen him go after a little B2B market. I mean, it's never really, it's not enough to really interest someone. I mean, if he took the entire dental supply business away, it wouldn't be 5% of Netflix.
Right.
So I can't say, but on my own email blast, I mean, there's somebody in that department. But I haven't seen any major manufacturers. I mean, wouldn't someone like 3M, Ivoclar, Dentsply, Sirona, I mean, none of them have busted a move to sell on Amazon, have they?
Well, I guess we all don't see the benefit for the dentist, and if there's no benefit for the dentist, there's no benefit for us, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. Amazon has smart people, and they will find their entrance into this market.
You know, a lot of people are worried that, that all these apps are spying on you, like Facebook and Google and Alexa and Siri, and you're all worried they're spying on you. But you know what? Your vacuum cleaner has been collecting dirt on you for years, so you should fear your vacuum cleaner. But what I like, what I wish, how large is your sales force in America of people calling directly on dental offices?
About 30 people.
30 people? You know what the best way for them to get leads are? So you go to Dentaltown, and we have this search function, and I want everyone to use the search function because that damn thing cost me $50,000 from Google. And it's when you go into Dentaltown, all the servers, everything's black. But there's one box that's yellow and says Google, and that's their search appliance. So we have 5.5 million posts on Dentaltown, and that'll search them all in like 0.01 seconds. But if I go to the search bar and I put in Kettenbach, and I do a search, here's countless threads, like we're talking about your impression materials, Kettenbach, every one of these threads has the word Kettenbach in it. And I think what some of the greatest dental labs do is they go in there and they put in the name of their lab, and when anybody ever mentions their lab, their employees are right on it. They're either like I think it's crazy when I get a Survey Monkey and they'll say, answer these 5 questions and we'll give you a gift card. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you're asking me 5 questions about this material, and then I just went on Dentaltown and searched where 250,000 dentists have posted 5 million times, and I just did a search, and here's 20 threads talking in detail about everything you're saying. And then what's really interesting is, I'll never forget, one of my favorite Dentaltown stories of all time was this dentist owned a company. It was actually dead man. It was the late Bob Ibsen, who I idolized. Somebody on Dentaltown was bad-mouthing his product, and he called me up, and first he insisted I take it down or he'd sue me. And I'm like, okay, sue me, whatever. And I said, Bob, if you were smart, he signed his name, and you're in Santa Maria and he's in San Diego. Why don't you call him up? You're both dentists. In fact, you're both bald, fat dentists. You have so much in common. 2 bald, fat dentists in Southern Cal. Why don't you call up? The guy's passionate. Why don't you call him up and invite him to your office and spend the day with him? And he's like, I would have sued him. It's like, Bob, that's the wrong emotion. So he took my advice. He called him up. The dentist was shocked that the CEO actually called him up and had him come down to the office. They argued for like 3 hours, and then they saw eye to eye. Bob actually changed his product for this guy. Then this guy becomes his best product champion, and then they go on to have a 30-year love affair. I mean, and a lot of companies, they call it townie visits, where Pulp Dent does it, Ultradent does it, 3M does it, where they'll send us a deal and they'll say, Okay, our product range is say this. Who are the most famous townies who have posted thousands of times on this deal? And then they'll fly those 3 or 4 people to their company, and then they'll get it. You should do it during the clone meeting. You should have a tour during the clone meeting when they're already at Germany, and then they come visit the deal so that you get a brain trust with not just dentists but highly visible dentists. Now, outside of dentistry, you call those influencers. Like Chanel number 5 will go find that one girl who for some reason has 50,000 followers on Instagram, and they'll say, okay, we want to work closely with you. We want to give you Chanel bags, tell us you like him or hate him or whatever. And so they're taking a lot of their advertising and putting it on social media influencers. And I think the smart companies are doing that. But I would email your 30 reps and say, everybody go to Dental Town and search Kettenbach, and then you get to see the dentist, you get to see their name. So one of your reps could go in there and say, hey, I saw that you posted on Dental Town. I see you use this product. What do you think of this product or that product? But social media influence, and the reason why it's so important is because it's trust. When we survey dentists, and we've been surveying them on Dental Town since we launched Dental Town on St. Patrick's Day, March 17, 1999, and you trust your townie. So when this guy, he's a real dentist in Texas. He's not saying things he doesn't believe in. He's the type of person that wouldn't lie. If he told you he loves this product, he loves it. Trust is everything, and it's one of the biggest things I've seen America losing in my lifetime. They used to, if you said, well, this is what the Centers for Disease Control say, or the National Institute of Health, people would say, oh, wow, they must be right. Now people say, oh, there are shills for the pharmaceuticals, and vaccinations are causing autism and killing our children, and water fluoridation is a crime. And so people have lost so much trust. Look at our government. Do you realize our government has only had an 11% approval rating for 2 decades? You know that your politician is taking bribes. You know he's a shill for his big donors. So you lost faith in your government and your institutions, and now the FBI and the courts. So who are you listening to? You're listening to your homies. So if you're on Dental Town and your favorite poster ad says, my God, I love this impression material, I love this temporary material, I love this lab, you're like, well, I don't trust all these big institutions, but I know I trust Ed. So I'd get those 30 reps to all have that app in their pocket. And another thing that's very powerful is when those reps walk in and say, my company is better than the company you're using. I think, well, you have incentivized behavior. You get paid from this company. But when they walk in there, I saw so many successful reps have sat at this table and told me that they'll print out a conversation thread on Dental Town where these 4 or 5 famous dentists are talking about how they think it's the best product, and they'll walk in there and they'll say, hey, do you see on Dental Town, Ed, who's got 10,000 posts, you see what he says about our company and their product? And people are going, oh, wow, Ed, wow, okay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, social media influencers are really the bomb. I can't believe we went over an hour. The show's an hour. We're already at hour 10. Is there any questions that I wasn't smart enough to ask, or do you wish I would have asked?
No, I think, of course, I could carry on this conversation for the rest of the day.
Well, let's continue on Dental Town. And I'll tell you what.
It would be enjoyable. But
one of the best marketing deals, like in America, remember that guy, he had I think it was a shaver. He said, I liked it so much, I bought the company. When people know, like Bill Gates owns Microsoft, or Steve Jobs had Apple, or Jeff Bezos Amazon, or they invest their money in Berkshire Hathaway because they know the owner, Warren Buffett, and all things like that. When the owners get on Dental Town and answer questions, I mean, they're like, because they're buying this stuff through the mail, and they're like, holy moly, Jens Kuhn is the owner, president, CEO. And so it's huge. It makes a real huge impact when the owner gets on there and they think, instead of buying, and that's why they don't like trust the government, because when you talk about like the IRS or the post office or the Department of Motor Vehicles, you don't know who owns it.
Well, but it's the same in huge corporate structures. Who do you actually talk to? Who's taking responsibility? Who's still going to be there 5 years from now?
The owner. And I loved Harry S. Truman. On his desk, he had a sign that says, "The buck stops here." No excuses. He was the president, and the buck stops here. Hey, I want to tell you seriously, it was a huge honor for you to come by our show today and talk to my homies. And thank you for owning this amazing company, for spending the last 20 years doing this, and for for all that you've done for dentistry. And thank you very much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.